The hum of the repair bay was almost comforting, a low, mechanical lullaby that clung to the air like static. The starship was quiet now, its crew either resting or performing routine scans, leaving the room bathed in a soft white light that reflected off polished metal and the tools scattered on the workbench. Kale, a human engineer, wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead, trying not to think about the way his heart was thumping. In front of him stood the alien queen, tall and imposing even in her armor's damaged state. Her scales shimmered faintly under the light, a mix of silver and deep violet, and the edges of her protective plating had jagged tears from the last skirmish. The armor wasn't just a suit of metal, it was a second skin, designed to move with her and react to threats with almost instinctive precision. And now, it was in Kale's hands. He knelt, examining a particularly fragile section near her shoulder joint. "I can fix this," he said, trying to sound confident, though his fingers trembled slightly. He had repaired suits before, military exosuits, mech plating, even fragile reconnaissance gear, but this was different. This was the Queen's armor. One wrong move, and he wasn't just breaking equipment, he could hurt her. The Queen leaned slightly forward, her amber eyes fixed on him. "Careful. That part's sensitive," she whispered, her voice low but firm. Kale froze for a heartbeat, the words sending a ripple of awareness through him. Sensitive, of course, it made sense. She had told him about the armor's design earlier, how the smallest pressure in the wrong spot could trigger a failsafe or send a shock through her nervous system. But hearing it now, hearing her voice, carry a quiet warning, made him realize how personal this repair really was. I understand," Kale murmured, carefully lifting a microtool and examining the joint. The plating had a fine network of conduits beneath it, tiny lines that pulsed with energy, almost like veins. He had to replace a small support strut, but he needed to avoid touching the conduits directly. Every movement had to be precise, deliberate. The Queen remained perfectly still, an imposing presence that somehow made Kale's fingers more aware of their own fragility. She watched him with those intelligent eyes, not threatening, but observing, calculating, judging his hands and his patience. In her culture, trust wasn't given lightly. It was earned, moment by moment, action by action. Kale felt the weight of that trust pressing down on him. He took a deep breath and began the repair. Moving slowly, every touch measured. Sparks of tiny electricity danced across the metal occasionally, but he managed to reroute them, guiding the flow around the damaged joint. He held the small strut in place with one hand while tightening the microscrews with the other. His mind a mixture of focus and awe. He had never worked this carefully before. Not on a machine, not on a human, not on anything that truly mattered this much. "You are meticulous," the Queen said after a moment, a small note of approval in her voice. "Most humans would rush. You are careful, respectful." Kale felt a flush rise to his cheeks, though he kept his eyes on the work. "I can't afford not to be," he said quietly. "One wrong move, and—" his voice trailed off. The Queen nodded slightly, as if acknowledging the unspoken consequences. Her body tensed ever so slightly, reminding him that this wasn't a simple machine. Every piece of armor he touched was connected to her, intertwined with nerves, strength, and centuries of tradition. Hours passed like minutes. Kale worked, cleaned, and realigned the armor plating, all while feeling the Queen's quiet presence like a heartbeat beside him. She didn't move, didn't fidget, didn't speak unless necessary, but he could sense her breathing change when he adjusted a piece too sharply or hesitated too long. She was patient, but she was alive, and that awareness made every action feel more significant. At one point, his hand brushed against the conduit accidentally. A tiny shock went through him, barely noticeable, but enough to make him wince. The Queen's hand shot out before he could apologize. "It is fine," she said calmly. "Mistakes happen. Learn from it." Her voice carried no anger, only an almost human gentleness that surprised him. Kale swallowed hard, nodding, and adjusted his grip. The incident reminded him that she wasn't just an alien warlord or a queen to be feared. She was an individual, capable of teaching, guiding, and even trusting someone so small in the grand scheme of her existence. It was a rare gift, and he felt honored and terrified all at once. By nightfall, the repair was nearly complete. Kale sat back on his heels, examining the armor under the bright lamp. The joint moved smoothly now, the energy conduits glowing softly, undisturbed. The plating aligned perfectly, and even the smallest imperfections had been carefully buffed out. He felt a quiet satisfaction, a rare pride in his work, and he looked up at the Queen. She studied him for a long moment, her eyes unreadable, then finally inclined her head slightly. "Well done," she said. Simple words, but to Kale, they carried the weight of a ceremony. Approval from her was not given lightly. Kale felt a smile creep onto his face. "Thank you," he said, though the words felt inadequate. "You are careful." "Yes," the Queen said again, her voice almost a whisper now. "But careful is not always enough. You have understanding. Human, you feel the weight of responsibility that is rare among your kind." The compliment struck him in a way he hadn't expected. Humans were often underestimated by other species, their fragility, impulsiveness, and emotions considered weaknesses. But here, in this quiet starship bay, under the glow of flickering lights, Cale realized that being human also meant having something others could not: intuition, empathy, and the courage to act when every moment mattered. He nodded slowly, absorbing the words. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said, "to keep you safe. To keep this ship safe." The Queen's amber eyes softened, ever so slightly. "Then perhaps humans are not as weak as many believe," she said. "Perhaps they have hidden strength." Cale returned to her side, checking the armor once more, fine-tuning the smallest screws and conduits. He marveled at how the alien design had thought of everything, how it moved with her body, and how a single flaw could mean disaster. Yet he also understood something else now, that the Queen had faith in him, faith that a human, small and fragile by comparison, could do something extraordinary. As the last adjustments were made, the Queen stepped forward, testing the movement of her repaired joint. She bent and twisted gracefully, the armor shifting seamlessly with her body. Cale held his breath as she turned to face him, her eyes searching. "Careful," she whispered again, a faint smile playing at the edges of her lips, "and courageous." Cale laughed softly, a mix of relief and nervousness. "I'll take that as high praise." She inclined her head, the gesture carrying a mix of amusement and respect. "You are unique, human, perhaps more than I imagined." Cale stood, brushing off his hands. The weight of the work, the responsibility, and the trust lifted slightly from his shoulders, leaving a quiet exhilaration behind. He realized that this moment, this quiet partnership with a being so far beyond him in power and stature, was the essence of what it meant to be human: small, fragile, often underestimated, yet capable of acts that could shift the balance of worlds. For the first time, he understood that humanity's strength wasn't in weapons, ships, or numbers. It was in ingenuity, empathy, and the courage to act when everything seemed impossible. And as he watched the Queen flex her repaired armor, he knew that he had contributed, in some small way, to a future that no one had predicted, one where humans were not just participants in the galaxy, but players capable of surprising even the greatest of alien civilizations. The Queen stepped closer, her presence overwhelming but no longer intimidating. She extended a hand, not in command, but in acknowledgement. Cale took it, feeling the rough edges of her scales against his skin. It was a touch that carried trust, approval, and a silent promise that this partnership, born in a repair bay on a distant starship, would change the way humans were seen across the stars. And in that moment, Cale smiled, understanding that sometimes the smallest act, careful, patient, and respectful, could become a bridge between species, a testament to the hidden power of humanity, and a reminder that courage came in many forms. The hum of the repair bay continued, steady and comforting. Outside, the stars stretched infinitely, a reminder of the vastness of space and the challenges yet to come. But inside, Cale and the alien Queen shared a quiet victory. The armor was whole, trust had been earned, and the galaxy, in its infinite complexity, had made room for humans once again. Cale leaned back against the wall, exhausted but exhilarated. The Queen's soft approving glance met his, and he knew that this moment, small and private though it was, mattered. It mattered because humans, even when underestimated, could rise to meet impossible challenges. And sometimes, being careful, being patient, and understanding the weight of responsibility was enough to become extraordinary. The repair bay lights dimmed slightly, and Cale realized he had learned something more than engineering that day. He had learned that humans could surprise, impress, and even earn the trust of beings far older, stronger, and wiser. That in itself was a kind of victory no one could take away.